Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we are unpacking what is honestly one of the most brilliant historical and courtroom thrillers ever recorded. I mean it. We're diving into Chapter 7 of the Book of Esther, and this text reads like an absolute masterclass in suspense, irony, and ultimate justice. So, whether you know the ancient Persian court inside and out, or you're just jumping in with us today, get ready for a visual exposition where literally every single detail matters.
It's a question that sets the stage for our entire analysis today. Think about it. What actually happens when the ultimate villain, a guy with just boundless pride and absolute power, blindly walks right into a trap that he built with his own two hands? It's an incredibly suspenseful premise, and as you'll see, the way it unfolds is going to lead us to a profound, totally paradigm-shifting conclusion. But to get there, we first need to look at the climax of the story.
The adversary and enemy is this evil Haman. Okay, let's dive into this. That is the explosive climax of the banquet we're about to analyze. It's the moment the tension just snaps completely. But how did we get to this devastating accusation? Well, to understand the sheer weight of these words, we have to look at the invisible architecture of the events that went down just hours before.
Section 1. The setup. The hidden hand.
Now, you might recall that Queen Esther hosted a first banquet for King Ahasuerus and our villain Haman. But strangely, she delayed her request by a full day. The text doesn't explicitly tell us why she waited, but looking at this timeline, we see exactly why that delay was absolutely crucial. It brilliantly illustrates God's hidden providence. In just one single night, the world turns completely upside down. Esther delays, the king just happens to get a bout of insomnia, he happens to read the historical records and realizes Mordecai saved his life. So the king decides to honor Mordecai, forcing Haman to parade his absolute worst enemy through the streets in royal robes. And before Haman can even process this humiliating defeat, let alone come up with a counter-strategy, royal eunuchs are rushing him straight to Esther's second banquet. It's an intricate divine setup executed in a matter of hours.
Section 2. The Queen's masterful plea. We are now right inside the tension of the Persian court during this fateful second banquet. Haman is totally off balance, and Esther is about to execute a brilliant legal and rhetorical strategy. The king asks Esther what her request is. Now, the fact that this is the third time the king has asked, highly significant. You see, in ancient Persian court protocol, you didn't just walk up and make a major political demand. A subject had to wait for the king's permission. So by asking for the third time, the king isn't just being polite here. This is official, royal authorization to speak freely. The door is wide open.
Notice the striking contrast in the postures of our two main characters. Esther answers the king by saying, "If I have found favor or grace in your sight." She approaches the throne recognizing that her life, her very position, is entirely dependent on grace. She doesn't act entitled at all. Contrast this with Haman. Just a chapter earlier, when the king asked how to honor someone, Haman's immediate internal thought was, "Who would the king delight to honor more than me?" Haman's entire worldview is built on blinding natural entitlement. Esther's is built on humility.
So, the crucial point is how Esther structures her argument. Look at her legal strategy. First, she acknowledges favor. Then she shocks the king by saying, "Let my life be given me at my petition and my people at my request." Right there, she equates her own survival with the survival of her people. She puts her own life on the line first because she knows the king at this exact moment cares deeply about his queen. She leverages his love for her to expose the threat against her entire people. It's genius.
Section 3. The dramatic courtroom reveal.
Which brings us to the climax, a scene that plays out literally like a high-stakes courtroom drama. Esther is finally unveiling the secret she's kept since the very beginning of the story, her identity as a Jew. So why did she wait all the way until Chapter 7 to reveal her heritage? Well, this is a classic technique of Hebrew literary tension. Esther hiding her identity wasn't out of fear or some kind of hesitation. It was a masterful narrative technique. By keeping the king completely in the dark until this exact moment, the author maximizes the dramatic payoff. The secret drops precisely when it's going to cause the most explosive impact.
And Esther doesn't just say, "Hey, someone wants to hurt me." No, she brilliantly quotes the exact legal decree that Haman had written and paid for. She says, "We are to be completely eradicated, slaughtered, and annihilated." She tells the king, "Look, if we had just been sold into slavery, I would have kept quiet, because that wouldn't be worth troubling the king." But she uses the exact extreme vocabulary of the decree to make it crystal clear. This isn't just about subjugation. This is about total, absolute extinction.
You can practically feel the temperature in the room spike.
King Ahasuerus is burning with furious rage. In the original text, his response is incredibly intense. He doesn't just ask who did this action, he asks, who is he and where is he who would dare presume in his heart to do such a thing? The king is appalled at the sheer audacity of it. He's just realizing his own authority has been weaponized to target his beloved queen.
And there it is. Esther points the finger. Adversary, enemy, evil. It's a devastating layer-by-layer accusation that lands squarely on the villain sitting right next to them at the table. The man who thought he was the guest of honor is suddenly the prime suspect in a capital crime.
Section 4. Swift and ironic justice. The tables haven't just turned, they have been completely shattered. Just look at Haman's reaction here. Throughout this entire narrative, Haman has been a man of many words, always boasting about his wealth, his promotions, his exclusive invitations. But right here, total silence. He is utterly terrified. The text actually notes he is struck with terror before the king and queen. He offers absolutely zero defense. Like a guilty man standing in a divine courtroom who knows the evidence is absolutely airtight, Haman's mouth is completely shut.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the profound poetic irony. Look at his expectations versus reality. He expected to be honored by the queen at this banquet. He expected to execute Mordecai on a 23-meter-tall pole that he built at his own house. Now look at the reality. He's accused and condemned by the very queen he thought admired him. And that massive trap he meticulously dug for an innocent man, it becomes the exact instrument of his own execution.
The speed of divine judgment here is just breakneck. The king storms out into the garden in a rage. Haman, in an absolute panic, falls on the couch where Esther is reclining to beg for his life. Well, the king walks back in at that exact second, sees Haman lunging toward the queen, and interprets it as an assault. He shouts, "Will he even assault the queen in my presence, in my own house?" The very moment those words leave the king's mouth, attendants cover Haman's face. Culturally speaking, covering the face was a definitive death sentence. He's no longer fit to even look upon the king. Zero room for escape. The wrath is swift.
Section 5. The ultimate gospel rescue.
Now we could stop the explainer right there, and it would be an incredibly satisfying historical thriller. But the text actually points us toward a deeply personal spiritual reality. You see, when we read stories like this, our natural instinct is to place ourselves on the left. We assume we're the innocent victims, like Esther. But the theological reality of this text challenges that completely. In relation to God's perfect holiness, the Bible says our sin puts us squarely in Haman's shoes.
Remember those exact words Esther used: adversary, enemy, evil? That is precisely how the Bible describes human sin. Sin isn't just making a little mistake. It's cosmic treason. It's an adversarial posture against a holy God. And just as the king's wrath was rightfully kindled against Haman's evil, divine justice rightfully demands swift punishment for our rebellion. If the story operates strictly on the principle that the wicked get what they deserve, well, we are all in massive trouble.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the ultimate gospel reality. Look at the stark difference here. Haman was guilty, and he rightfully paid for his own evil on that wooden pole. But the gospel reveals a stunning reversal. Jesus Christ was entirely innocent, yet he went to a wooden cross to pay the price for our evil. We don't face the gallows we built for ourselves because an innocent substitute stepped in to take the exact wrath we deserved.
Esther was incredibly brave, no doubt about it. We celebrate her courage. But her rescue was limited. She could only petition an earthly king to save one specific nation for a limited time. But Jesus? Jesus is the ultimate high priest. He didn't just petition a king, he offered himself, once and for all, turning the divine wrath that we earned into unending grace for all of humanity. He is the true and better Esther who didn't just risk his life, but gave it willingly.
And that leaves us with this final thought. You've seen how perfectly the trap closed on Haman, a man totally blinded by his own pride. But you've also seen how perfect grace intercepts justice for those who recognize their need for it. So the question is, will you humbly recognize the ultimate grace that saved you from the trap of your own making? Take a moment to really let that sink in today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep seeking the profound truths hidden right beneath the surface of the text. Catch you next time.